"That is a man," said de Marsay, pointing to the mulatto with a somber gesture. "There is no devotion like the devotion which obeys in friendship, and does not stop to weigh motives in that man. You possess a true friend." "I will give him you, if you like," she answered. "He will serve you with the same devotion that he has for me, if I so instruct him." She waited for a word of recognition, and went on with an accent replete with tenderness. "Adolphe, give me then one kind word, it is nearly day." Henry did not answer. The young man had one sorry quality, for one considers as something great everything which resembles strength, and often men invent extravagances. Henry knew not how to pardon that returning upon itself, which is one of the soul's graces, was a non-existent sense for him. The ferocity of the northern man, with which the English blood is deeply tainted, had been transmitted to him by his father. He was inexorable both in his good and evil impulses. Paquita's exclamation had been all the more horrible to him, in that it had dethroned him from the sweetest triumph, which had ever flattered his man's vanity, hope, love, and every emotion had been exalted with him. All had lit up within his heart, and his intelligence. Then these torches illuminating his life had been extinguished by a cold wind. Paquita, in her stupefaction of grief, had only strength enough to give the signal for departure. "What is the use of that?" she said, throwing away the bandage. "If he does not love me, if he hates me, it is all over." She waited for one look, did not obtain it, and fell half dead. The mulatto cast a glance at Henry, so horribly significant, that for the first time in his life, the young man, to whom no one denied the gift of rare courage, trembled. "If you do not love her well, if you give her the least pain, I will kill you." Such was the sense of that brief gaze. De Marsay was escorted with a care almost obsequious along the dimly lit corridor, at the end of which he issued by a secret door into the garden of the Hotel San Real. The mulatto made him walk cautiously through an avenue of lime trees, which led to a little gate opening upon a street which was at that hour deserted. De Marsay took a keen notice of everything. The carriage awaited him. This time, the mulatto did not accompany him, and at the moment when Henry put his head out of the window to look once more at the gardens of the hotel, he encountered the white eyes of Cristemio, with whom he exchanged a glance on either side. There was a provocation, a challenge, the declaration of a savage war, of a duel in which ordinary laws were invalid, where treason and treachery were admitted means. Cristemio knew that Henry had sworn Paquita's death. Henry knew that Cristemio would like to kill him before he killed Paquita. Both understood each other to perfection. "The adventure is growing complicated, in a most interesting way," said Henry. "Where is the gentleman?" going to ask the coachman. De Marsay was driven to the house of Paul de Manerville. For more than a week Henry was away from home, and no one could discover either what he did during this period nor where he stayed. This retreat saved him from the fury of the mulatto, and caused the ruin of the charming creature who had placed all her hope in him, whom she loved as never human heart had loved on this earth before. On the last day of the week, about 11 o'clock at night, Henry drove up in a carriage to the little gate in the garden of the Hotel San Real. 4 men accompanied him. The driver was evidently one of his friends, for he stood up on his box like a man who was to listen, an attentive sentinel for the least sound. One of the other 3 took his stand outside the gate in the street. The second waited in the garden, leaning against the wall. The last, who carried in his hand a bunch of keys, accompanied de Marsay. Henry said his companion to him, "We are betrayed." "By whom, my good Ferragus?" "They are not all asleep," replied the chief of the devourers. "It is absolutely certain that someone in the house has neither eaten nor drunk. Look, see that light." "We have a plan of the house. From where does it come?" "I need no plan to know," replied Ferragus. "It comes from the room of the Marquise." "Ah," cried de Marsay, "no doubt she arrived from London today. The woman has robbed me even of my revenge. But if she has anticipated me, my good Gratian, we will give her up to the law." "Listen, listen, the thing is settled," said Ferragus to Henry. The 2 friends listened intently, and heard some feeble cries, which might have aroused pity in the breast of a tiger. "Your Marquise did not think the sound would escape by the chimney," said the chief of the devourers, with the laugh of a critic, enchanted to detect a fault in a work of merit. "We alone, we know how to provide for every contingency," said Henry. "Wait for me, I want to see what is going on upstairs. I want to know how their domestic quarrels are managed. By God, I believe she is roasting her at a slow fire." De Marsay lightly scaled the stairs with which he was familiar, and recognized the passage leading to the boudoir. When he opened the door, he experienced the involuntary shudder which the sight of bloodshed gives to the most determined of men. the spectacle which was offered to his view was moreover in more than one respect astonishing to him. The marquise was a woman. She had calculated her vengeance, with that perfection of perfidy which distinguishes the weaker animals. She had dissimulated her anger in order to assure herself of the crime before she punished it. "Too late, my beloved," said Paquita in her death agony, casting her pale eyes upon de Mars. The girl of the golden eyes expired in a bath of blood, the great illumination of candles, a delicate perfume, which was perceptible a certain disorder, in which the eye of a man accustomed to amorous adventures could not but discern the madness which is common to all the passions, revealed how cunningly the marquise had interrogated the guilty one. The white room, where the blood showed so well, betrayed a long struggle. The Prince of Paquita's hands were on the cushions. Here she had clung to her life. Here she had defended herself. Here she had been struck. Long strips of the tapestry had been torn down by her bleeding hands, which without a doubt had struggled long. Paquita must have tried to reach the window. Her bare feet had left their imprints on the edge of the divan, along which she must have run. Her body, mutilated by the dagger thrusts of her executioner, told of the fury with which she had disputed a life, which Henry had made precious to her. She lay stretched on the floor, and in her death throes had bitten the ankles of Madame de Saint-Riel, who still held in her hand her dagger, dripping blood. The hair of the marquise had been torn out. She was covered with bites, many of which were bleeding, and her torn dress revealed her, in a state of semi-nudity with the scratches on her breasts. She was sublime, so her head, eager and maddened, exhaled the odor of blood. Her panting mouth was open, and her nostrils were not sufficient for her breath. There are certain animals who fall upon their enemy in their rage, do it to death, and seem in the tranquility of victory to have forgotten it. There are others who prowl around their victim, who guard it in fear lest it should be taken away from them, and who, like the Achilles of Homer, drag their enemy by the feet 9 times round the walls of Troy. The marquise was like that. She did not see Henry in the first place. She was too secure of her solitude to be afraid of witnesses, and secondly, she was too intoxicated with warm blood, too excited with the fray, too exalted to take notice of the whole of Paris. If Paris had formed a circle round her, a thunderbolt would not have disturbed her. She had not even heard Paquita's last sigh, and believed that the dead girl could still hear her die without confessing. She said, "Go down to hell, monster of ingratitude, belong to no one but the fiend. For the blood you gave him, you owe me all your own. Die, suffer 1,000 deaths. I have been too kind. I was only a moment killing you. I should have made you experience all the tortures that you have bequeathed to me. I shall live in misery. I have no one left to love but God." She gazed at her. "She is dead," she said to herself after a pause in a violent reaction. "Dead, oh, I shall die of grief." The marquise was throwing herself upon the divan, stricken with a despair which deprived her of speech, when this movement brought her in view of Henry de Mars. "Who are you?" she asked, rushing at him with her dagger raised. Henry caught her arm, and thus they could contemplate each other face to face. A horrible surprise froze the blood in their veins, and their limbs quivered like those of frightened horses. In effect, the two Menochmi had not been more alike. With one accord, they uttered the same phrase. "Lord Dudley must have been your father." The head of each was drooped in affirmation. "She was true to the blood," said Henry, pointing to Paquita. "She was as little guilty as it is possible to be," replied Margarita Euphemia Porriberil, and she threw herself upon the body of Paquita, giving vent to a cry of despair. "Poor child, oh, if I could bring thee to life again, I was wrong. Forgive me, Paquita, dead, and I live. I am the most unhappy." At that moment, the horrible face of the mother of Paquita appeared. "You are come to tell me that you never sold her to me to kill," cried the marquise. "I know why you have left your lair. I will pay you twice over. Hold your peace." She took a bag of gold from the ebony cabinet and threw it contemptuously at the old woman's feet. The chink of the gold was potent enough to excite a smile on the Georgian's impassive face. "I come at the right moment for you, my sister," said Henry. "The law will ask of you." "Nothing," replied the marquise. "One person alone might ask for a reckoning, for the death of this girl. Cristemio is dead." "And the mother," said Henry, pointing to the old woman, "will you not always be in her power? She comes from a country where women are not beings, but things, chattels with which one does as one wills, which one buys, sells, and slays, in short, which one uses for one's caprices, as you here use a piece of furniture. Besides, she has one passion, which dominates all the others, and which would have stifled her maternal love, even if she had loved her daughter. A passion." What? Henry asked, quickly interrupting his sister. Play God keep you from it, answered the Marquise. But whom have you, said Henry, looking at the girl of the golden eyes, who will help you to remove the traces of this fantasy, which the law would not overlook? I have her mother, replied the Marquise, designating the Georgian to whom she made a sign to remain. We shall meet again, said Henry, who was thinking anxiously of his friends, and felt that it was time to leave. No, brother, she said, we shall not meet again. I am going back to Spain to enter the convent of Les Dolors. You are too young, yet too lovely, said Henry, taking her in his arms and giving her a kiss. Goodbye, she said, there is no consolation when you have lost that which has seemed to you the infinite. A week later, Paul de Manerville met de Marsay in the Tuileries on the Terrasse de Feuillants. Well, what has become of our beautiful girl of the golden eyes, you rascal? She is dead. What of? Consumption. Paris, March 1834, April 1835.